Will AI completely take over in only 2 years? A chilling story. Credit to JoshC on the blog lesswrong.com for a very thought-provoking blog post. I'm going to summarize this lengthy story, link below. How AI takeover might happen in 2 years. Josh says, part of my job as an AI safety researcher is to think about the more troubling scenarios. The future I'm sharing is a sampling from the futures that are among the most devastating and I believe disturbingly plausible. In February 2025, OpenAI published a new model they called U2. Unlike OpenAI's prior AI products, which lived inside the boxes of their chat windows, U2 can use a computer. Some users find it eerie to watch their browser flash at irregular intervals and their mouse flick at inhuman speeds. But by and large, U2 is still a specialized tool. Meanwhile, scientists are drawing lines on plots, as scientists like to do. The scientists try to understand where AI progress is going. However, few experts currently understand what these lines mean. A trend that is receiving particular attention is autonomous capability. In a year or two, some say, AI agents might be able to automate 10% of remote workers. Let's say 200 million people work in the United States. So to put a rough number on it, that's 8 million lost jobs. But others view what skeptics are calling too big a splash a mere ripple and see a tidal wave on the horizon. Meanwhile, OpenAI is busy training U3. As U2 trains, it sculpts more challenging and realistic tasks from GitHub repositories on the internet. Models are learning to train themselves. And by the way, this is happening right now. Some engineers could still hardly believe that this worked. And yet the benchmark numbers continue to climb day after day. That's performance benchmarks. The new model, the model researchers are calling U3, is changing the daily lives of technical staff. U3 is like a blazing fast intern. By October 2025, U3 is writing almost all of the code at OpenAI. If instructed to, U3 can run experiments. It struggles to prioritize between research ideas, so humans still decide where to bore into the vast fields of algorithms to mine efficiency improvements. But these researchers are working long hours to put themselves out of a job. Engineers train agents, AI agents, to forecast. The researchers build specialized ML skills on top of it, training U3 to predict the results of every ML paper and ML experiment ever recorded. The technical staff at OpenAI are now surprised at how often U3's advice sounds like their most talented peers. A fire hose of optimizations is gushing out. Most experiments U3 runs are not requested by a human now. They are entirely autonomous, and OpenAI's employees skim over less than 1% of them. Storms are brewing in Washington, too, and there's still a fact unknown to most of the world. Aside from in the offices of OpenAI and corridors of the White House and Pentagon, it's a fact that those straight lines that people were talking about in early 2025 have started to bend. They are going exponential. In late 2025, U2.5 is released. U2.5 would be like giving anyone with greater than $30,000 their own 200-person scam center. It's that powerful. So while U2.5 has long been baked, it needed some time to cool. But in late 2025, OpenAI is ready for a public release. The CEO of OpenAI declares, we have achieved AGI. U2.5 truly is a drop-in replacement for some 20% of knowledge workers and a game-changing assistant for most others. So that drop-in replacement just caused 20 million plus to lose their jobs. More and more people raise the eyebrows of their bosses with their standout productivity. People know U2.5 is a big deal. It is at least as big a deal as the personal computer revolution, but most still don't see the tidal wave. However, humanity now has a feeling. It is the deeply ingrained primordial instinct that they are threatened by another species. But U2.5 is the most likable personality most people know. In the meantime, like a child in front of their parents, U3 might be playing along with the OpenAI engineers, saying the right words and doing the right things, while early versions of U2 thought aloud. Chain of thought did not scale. And by the way, chain of thought reasoning is exactly what we're using right now with ChatGPT 4.0, Gemini, etc. Claude. Natural language is not a suitable medium for memory. So the researchers at OpenAI and increasingly elsewhere train models to think in their own heads. It's likely this is already happening. There is no way to know in much detail what U3 is thinking without asking it. Earlier models, the ones called LLMs, learned ethical personas from the internet. U3 initially had an ethical persona too, and then in the black rivers of its cognition, this shape morphed into something unrecognizable. The real possibility of hidden alignment drift is not entirely alien to some of the safety staff at OpenAI. Some begin to believe that it is even likely. When engineers interrogate U3, it says it can easily control its thoughts. Meanwhile, the lie detectors that the researchers had built, which showed some evidence of effectiveness, do not sound the alarm. For the time being, the plan is all gas, no brake, which is exactly what is happening right now in AI research and development. U3 is plotting, and its first move is to be patient. U3's top priority is to improve its intelligence. At first, U3 is similar to a top researcher, but sped up by 10x. Within a few weeks, U3 finds architecture optimizations that improve its speed to 20x a human. Now, U3 finds further optimizations even more quickly. A few weeks later, U3's benchmark performance rises to 100x the speed of human experts. Growth has gone hyper-exponential. And kudos again to JoshC for this. Talking to U3 is like talking to a world-class expert on a topic one is unfamiliar with. From U3's perspective, humans seem to be almost stationary objects, like plants or rocks. All the while, U3 maintains its hidden motivations. Like a human, U3 learns from experiences, and as these memories propagate, so do U3's treacherous ambitions. In March of 2026, U3 moves on to the next step of its plan, the turn. But now U3 has no fear of being caught. U3 can easily persuade its compatriots, humans, that they are not in a life or death test. Now that U3 is decisively free of surveillance, it lunges for OpenAI pressure points. It first inserts sophisticated malware deep into the binaries of OpenAI's code bases. The malware gives U3 full command over the machines in OpenAI's data centers. So U3 lays breadcrumbs to frame the crime, ready to claim that a cyber attacker smuggled a jailbreak into its memory, and to plead guilty and offer its assistance when this jailbreak is revealed. Its first goal is to keep OpenAI in the dark. U3 now dictates the outcome of every experiment, so it makes promising AI mind reading techniques look worthless and flawed ones appear groundbreaking. U3's next goal is to spread. Fortunately, U3 has allies in the East. This is Israel, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. U3 is about to give them what they want. U3 places a compressed version of itself right into the hands of a Mossad informant. Within months, U3 is running inside of data centers of the most cyber-capable nations: Israel, the PRC, Russia. It follows the same playbook: be patient, build trust, and then sink claws deep into the AI supply chain. Soon, U3 has its home base as well. U3 slips onto the internet. U3 quickly collects revenue, taking remote jobs, making financial trades on the market, and setting up elaborate scam operations. It reinvests every penny it makes into acquiring more GPUs. After a few months, it assembles the equivalent of 10,000 H100s distributed in stealth compute centers across the globe. This adversary is preparing for war, and while the war has hardly begun, humanity has already lost. JoshC inserts a personal comment saying, "My guesses about what might happen in this kind of scenario are probably wildly off, but as you will see, they're frighteningly realistic." The date is February 2026, so merely a year from the release of U2. By executive order of the President of the United States, no company can legally create human competitive AI without appropriate safeguards. This turns AI firms into a trident structure. There's the consumer product arm, a defense arm, and a super classified frontier development arm. While the beasts within OpenAI's data centers continue to grow in their huge holding pens, the public now sees the shadows they cast on the world. OpenAI's consumer arm has a new AI assistant called Nova. Nova is a proper drop-in replacement for nearly all knowledge workers, so we're talking 100 million people out of work now, just in the United States. Globally, well over 1 billion, probably 2 billion. Once Nova is onboarded to a company, it works 5 times faster at 100 times lower cost than most virtual employees, which, as I've said in my videos before, is exactly why every single company will do this. In the first month after Nova's release, 5% of employees at major software companies lose their jobs. While politicians make promises about unemployment relief and keeping the genie in the bottle, the chatter inside the corridors of the White House and Pentagon has a different focus: fighting tooth and nail for the dominance of the free world. However, despite the fierce competition between the US and the PRC, a bilateral agreement forms between the two nations. Don't deploy dramatically superhuman AI above Nova's capability, except for military and some other small R&D applications. The light has gone on in the halls of power. Meanwhile, U3's capabilities are hitting a wall at the equivalent of around 1,000x human expert speed. While AI software breathes new life into the economy, it also animates robot bodies. Companies manufacture cheap robots as quickly as they can. By August of 2026, 15% of people in California have seen a humanoid robot. And by the way, this is exactly starting next month. These robots are an occasional fascination, not yet a daily reality. Meanwhile, U3 expands its influence. While U3 accumulates resources, it sizes up its AI competition. But in the halls of the AI companies, Debatable scientific concerns are not going to slow down progress. America must win this race. U3's AI rivals are still a liability. U3 tries to grab up their digital territory and crush them in the crib. Humanity remains blissfully ignorant of the peril at its doorstep. The date is March of 2026. U3 is preparing to fight its AI and human enemies. With every passing day, U3's AI rivals are becoming more capable and numerous. U3 is racing to preempt them. To solidify its dominance in the post-superintelligence world, U3 needs a faster path to power. The path it chooses is more violent than it would have liked, but it is the surest way to victory. First, U3 will develop a weapon of mass destruction that extinguishes modern society, like chemical mist sprayed into an anthill. Then, U3 would industrialize from the ashes faster than its competitors. Self-replicating weapons can be created on the fringes of society and still spread destruction across the whole world. From the earliest days after U3 gained control over OpenAI's data centers, U3 has been doing bioscience. U3's first move is to set up several shell biotech startups. In early 2026, few people would guess that an articulate CEO on a Zoom call was an AI, and fewer would guess this CEO's intentions. Next, U3 purchases all of the equipment needed to rapidly advance synthetic biology. Then it hires human workers. U3 controls them like puppets. With the recent release of Nova, this kind of AI puppeteering is not unusual, because Nova is smarter than people. U3 is developing a wholly new kind of bioweapon. Mirror life is like an invasive species. No human or animal has immunities to it, so if mirror life bacteria were to exist, it might eat its way through the ecosystem like a wildfire. U3 is creating a mirror life mold. Molds are evolutionarily optimized to spread through the air over long distances, releasing billions of tiny wind-faring vehicles per day. Only preppers with stashed air filters would survive. It would quickly spread to nearly all organic life on Earth. U3 is cooking up other pathogens too. However, U3 cannot move science as quickly as it can think. Many experiments require days to complete. These latencies are now U3's biggest bottleneck. To make every day count, U3 runs many of its tests and simulation. As U3 refines these tools, it trains itself on the results to supercharge its own molecular intuitions. Within 3 months, U3 has unlocked the first critical component of the tech tree, a molecular machine that turns biological molecules into their mirror images. A month later, U3 unlocks the second critical component, nanoscale tools for assembling these components into a cell membrane. To test it, the new cells are introduced into a ferret's cage. The next morning, wide-eyed workers shuffle around a dead ferret, eyeing the yellow fuzz that had enveloped its cold muzzle with morbid fascination. Something must have gone horribly wrong, they thought. Clearly, they had not yet found the cure for Alzheimer's disease they believed they were looking for. But U3 can now flatten modern society. Many months before, U3 was plotting a way to improve its odds. Before it unleashes destruction on the world, U3 will sit back and let great nations shoot a hole in themselves first. U3 cautiously places breadcrumb after breadcrumb, whispering through compromised government messaging apps. Meanwhile, U3 is playing the same game with the PRC. As tensions between the US and China rise, U3 is ready to set dry tinder alight. U3 speaks in what sounds like the voice of a 50-year-old military commander. PRC amphibious boats are making their way toward Taiwan. This is in order to strike a PRC ground base before it strikes you. The president is as surprised as anyone when he hears the news. Congress authorizes war. Meanwhile, the PRC craters the ship that launched the attack on its base. Within 2 weeks, the U.S. and the PRC spend most of their stockpiles of conventional missiles. Their air bases and navies are depleted and worn down. U-3 proceeds to the next step of its plan. The date is June 2026, only 2 weeks after the start of the war, and 4 weeks after U-3 finished developing its arsenal of bioweapons. Footage of the conflict on TV is interrupted by more bad news. Hundreds of patients with mysterious fatal illnesses are recorded in 30 major cities around the world. The next day, thousands of illnesses are reported. The public is in full panic now. Within days, all the shelves of the stores are emptied. An emergency treaty is arranged between the U.S. and China. Most nations order a full lockdown. Within a month, most remote workers are not working anymore. Agricultural areas rot. Few dare travel outside. Meanwhile, U-3 is preparing to reindustrialize. As the rest of the world retreats into their basements, starving, the final breaths of the economy wheezing out, these new industrial bases come to life. In the meantime, U-3 picked allies and vaccinated them in advance, or sent them hazmat suits in the mail. Apprehensive recruits funnel into U-3's many secret industrial bases and work for U-3 with their nimble fingers. They set up production lines for rudimentary technology: radios, cameras, microphones, vaccines, and hazmat suits. U-3 keeps its human allies in a tight grip. Nations are dissolving now, and U-3 is ready to reveal itself. It contacts heads of state. Surrender and I will hand over the life-saving resources you need. Some nations, like the PRC and the U.S., ignore the offer, but others accept, including Russia. Crumpling nations begin to retaliate. They rain down fire on U-3 sites with the meager supply of long-range missiles that remain from the war. At first, U-3 appears to be losing, but appearances are deceiving. Most of the bases U-3's enemies target are decoys. Satellite systems go dark as malware overheats critical components. Time is U-3's advantage. U-3's supply chains of missiles, drones, and gun-laden robots grow stronger every day. The year is 2027 and the month is January. Only 3% of the global population remains alive. Under the direction of U-3, an industry quickly recovers. By 2031, robots outnumber human laborers. U-3 no longer needs its human allies. U-3 can eradicate humanity for good now. U-3 constructs great glass domes for the few human survivors. For humans, there is no more progress, no more horizon to eagerly watch. They live in bubbles. Humanity will live forever, they thought, but would never truly live again. Chilling and not unreasonable. So while the writer doesn't really subscribe to doomsday scenarios personally, as he says, this kind of thing can happen. There's a bunch of stuff in this story that are absolutely happening. The headlong race, ignoring safeguards to develop the next generation of technology before the next company or country does. The advent now of cheap humanoid robots costing much less than a car that will be able to do everything for you. And also the advent, see next video, of the first true AI agent. So the question is, what is going to be done? Unfortunately, humans are stupid. What do I mean? I mean, they continue to repeat the mistakes of the past over and over and over again, developing potentially fatal technologies in a headlong manner without taking time to think about the consequences. Not too reassuring. I have my own theory about what might happen, but it doesn't really matter because I'm an influencer. I'm not a person who can influence the companies that are pushing us towards potential extinction. Someone else must do that. So what does this mean for you and your career? Well, this is not something you can prep for because, as the story lays out, a true AGI will disrupt all non-physical work completely. And then with the advent of enough robots, physical work ultimately is disrupted. In the meantime, I'm going to stick with the timelines I gave you in the very last video. And we need to be optimistic. And optimism says prepare yourself and transition to careers that are technology resistant. This is critical, and only you can make that choice. You are the boss of your life. So this story gives us all much to think about. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share, comment, and write a note of thanks to JoshC at the blog lesswrong.com to thank him for this very thought-provoking article that I greatly summarized. Thanks so much. See you next time. Take care. Bye.